YouTube end as I normally do. Hopefully some people will be on because all the videos are doing quite well at the moment. Pathways being a gold mine, as you guys know, for funny content. So anyway, I am just going to adjust the live stream settings because, again, as I always complain about, when you start a live stream on the mobile, the settings don't save across as you'd have them on the PC. So it's really frustrating in the sense that you have, if you're not by a PC, you can't have the stuff set up as you'd want it. If you are by a PC, right, Rich? If you are by a PC, you know, it's just more the issue that, what was I going to say? That, you know, you still have to go and do all those settings. So, right, Echo, all right, Rich. So I'm going to try and do the slightly bigger chat on the screen in just a second, just because it's easier for me to read than the tiny font I get on the phone. So let's just finish off what I was doing there. Right, cool. So hopefully there's a bit of a noise on the background I can't really get rid of over my headphones, other than so actually I might be able to. Just give me a second. Just thought of something I could actually try and do. So if I click settings and do that, there we go. That's right. That should have sorted it. Right, good. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Right, let me get the chat up bigger on this screen. There we go. And that's easier for me to read. So, all right, Echo, all right, Rich, all right, Stalker the All Adamson, all right, Welsh Mafia, all right, Speaker of Purity, and person whose name I won't be able to pronounce, but you've got, what's that, the monolith little patch from Stalker on your thing, I think? It looks like a Stalker patch. I found a mint PBF for $25. Should I purchase? Yeah, $25 is a good price. £25 even be a good price for a PBF nowadays. Does that have the bag and everything? But yeah. Yeah, like the stream, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Rich. Don't forget to like the stream because it does seem when people like and comment a lot, YouTube does share my stuff a lot more. Probably Austrian painter. I mean, I'm not a member of a group as far as I'm aware that he'd immediately put me in a camp for. Although, like with all those things, it's a slippery slope of, you know, they'll probably keep finding more purity guidelines of, so you're not pure enough people, so we will put you in the camp, yeah. So they'd eventually probably do that. Stalin, though, is literally go to gulag, go to gulag, go to gulag for, like, if your neighbor reports you or anything like that, but both were shitty regimes to live under. If I had to live under one of those sort of dictatorship type regimes, I'd say either Tito in Yugoslavia, if you wanted a communist one, or Franco in Spain is the fascist sort of alternative, because they were much more sensible dictators, as in, you know, most people didn't really have a problem under them. Won't change gun laws anywhere at the moment. Again, in the future, if we have a completely different political landscape, maybe. Again, Mussolini's Italy wasn't as bad as living in it as Hitler's Germany, but the problem was obviously that you know, Mussolini's Italy did kind of fucking fall apart because Mussolini joined the Axis and, you know, didn't have a competent army with, you know, proper logistics and everything else. But like I said, Francoist Spain, because the regime there survived until the 70s. You know, the Spanish economic miracle happened under Franco. Again, Jaman, other people might be able to do that. Sadly, I can't because, like I said, I just have to do AI slop when I do that sort of stuff because most of my videos, obviously, are just when I chat about stuff on camera. I've just been doing the pathway stuff because it's funny and, you know, culturally relevant at the moment. So, yeah, if the people didn't see, I did one today about the Prevent program because Pathways is sort of a propaganda game for Prevent, but Prevent is the one where, obviously, lots of terrorists get referred to Prevent. Prevent then says, oh, they're fine, they're not going to hurt anyone. And then, you know, like a month to a year later, they go and commit a terrorist attack. I don't know what ultra-nationalist fascism, Marxism would be. Totalitarian communism is pretty fucking awful because of, you know, how many communist regimes in history just mass murdered or starved their own civilians. I'd rather not spend too much of this stream, though, talking about the politics of extremist sort of, you know, political things. Most people wouldn't want to live under either. Yeah, that's saying that, Rich. Yeah, you're right there. Action T4, wasn't it? Was the name of it, where yeah, they murdered lots of the disabled. So saying that, Although, like, again, the funny thing with the Nazis is a lot of the high up Nazis were fucking weirdos with various disabilities. But again, with all these regimes, the person at the top can be fucking, like all of the things they say they hate and get away with it. Like Goebbels had a deformed foot, didn't he? Like Goering was a fat morphine addict. There's loads of shit like that with all these top people in these regimes where they love to murder other people for these same things. But, it's projecting. And there's some very weird videos of Hitler as well, where he's proper stimming out like he's having some sort of autistic little flutter. Later in his life, he had Parkinson's, yes, and was addicted to all sorts of different drugs. No, I know that, but you said ultranationalism. Sorry, Speaker of Purity, you're on about all of the various words as a thing. I thought you were lumping them together. So yeah, ultranationalist is just like a super nationalistic version of your country, isn't it? Fascism is, Mussolini, Franco, stuff like that. Marxism, totalitarian, right? Marxism and communism are basically the same thing because the communists based it off of Marxism. Out of the two, again, I haven't seen enough ultranationalist countries to know how it would work. Because I know in like Russia at the moment, for example, you get the ultranationalists, the ones that would actually pursue the war against Ukraine, for example, smarter than Putin was, and Putin's now had them locked up. People like Gherkin, because they actually kind of know what they're talking about, and Monkey doesn't like that. But again, fascism, as much as it can be bad at times, fascism probably wouldn't be too bad to live under if you didn't have a fucking moron in charge of it. That's the same thing with lots of dictatorships. You just have to hope the people at the top that are making all the laws aren't fucking retards. But with authoritarian regimes where people surround themselves with yes men, that's generally what happens with all these regimes, because they get told non-stop what they want to hear, not the reality. Yes and no, Welsh Mafia, as far as I understand, because Franco did the weird thing that when he came to power, he kind of purged the worst of the fascists, or like the strongest fascists. He was basically like a weird monarchist, nationalist, Catholic sort of. Again, the reason I think Spain's sort of Franco Spain worked was because he kind of appealed to enough of the different groups and sort of banded them together. Whereas, again, this is like where Orwell fell out with the commies, was because the commies and anarchists and all that just started killing each other on the other side in that conflict, because they did the purity spiraling thing of, oh, you're not a real anarchist or communist, I'm going to shoot you. Well, like I said, Franco Spain is one of the ones where it's the least bad. Again, I'm sure there were lots of people that had a miserable time under it. But if you look at, the economy at the end of Franco's reign compared to the start and lots of things like that, those sort of things, people's living standards did improve. But you'd also probably have to be very careful what you said in public and to other people, or you might be disappeared. Yeah, again, that's the same thing, Echo, like I was saying about some of the other things like, Yugoslavia compared to, the USSR. Yeah, Kevin, I need to be very careful, though, what I say about stuff like this, because as you know, living in Keir Starmer's Britain, as much as I think some of these points are very thing, I'm sure they're watching me now after all my recent videos. Yeah, Franco Spain as well ended because I think he had a successor lined up that was assassinated by the Basque, what was it, like the Basque nationalists or whatever it was. It was on those groups anyway, like ETA or one of the others. He was assassinated, and then I don't think he had anybody sort of lined up. He didn't have a spare, if you like, because the person that was going to go after him wasn't actually like a relative of his. It was just somebody that knew what they were doing. And then the problem was, because there wasn't a strong leader to replace Franco, it sort of just ended. I think there was a little bit of political violence where, like, the Guardia Civil and that tried to seize power at one point, because there's some famous pictures of like the policemen in Parliament holding the politicians hostage with guns. But I think in the end, the king just kind of brought it back to working into a democracy. GP5M for €27. Should I buy it or an OZK? Isn't the OZK the chemical suit? Oh, buy it and an OZK. Yeah, if you want. Like I said, they're not. They're not like, like I said, they're not super modern. My OZK smells fucking horrible. I actually keep it outside in an outside storage container, like, one of those pool style containers in the garden. Because if you have it in the house, it literally makes the room stink of like weird rubber. Like I said, in Britain, personally, I don't know if any of the political parties would be great. This is the thing. Like, people keep going like, "I bet you suck Farage's dick and all this." It's like, well, so with any political thing, you would want what currently is running your country to do a good job. So ideally, I'd like Labour to not be shit and be a good government, but they're not. The Lib Dems, basically, I don't even know what any of their policies are. Conservatives are just kind of irrelevant now. Reform, I agree with some of their policies, not some of their others. And the Green Party on the opposite end, like I said, I agree with some of their policies and not others. But the problem is there's no one party where I think all their policies are good. The Greens, the modern Greens are really weird, right? So the original Greens were very much eco-hippies, right? It's all from, have your names pronounced. Oh, and don't forget to like the stream, everybody. But yeah, so the original Greens were proper fucking greenies, hippies, save the earth type people. Now the Greens are basically further left than Labour, where what the Greens are trying to do is promise a lot more socialist stuff to people. So, like those sort of same people won't vote Labour anymore. But the problem is with the Greens, like I said, is even though I think some of their more socialisty things, because like I said, I actually kind of think stuff like Finland and a lot of the Nordic countries, how they have like higher tax but better living standards. Yeah, as Rocky says. But the problem is the Greens also are kind of holding hands with Islamists and people like that. And the Greens have a very fucking naive foreign policy, of like, don't have an army, don't have nukes, just sing Kumbaya and everyone will like you. So the Greens are fucking delusional like that, like Jeremy Corbyn was. Because again, they're kind of like Jeremy Corbyn, if, even though Corbyn made his own party and now that's kind of irrelevant. Where, again, like a lot of their domestic social issue things, I think are kind of nice. But then, they kind of making your country a massive fucking target because they're like, oh, nobody will ever wish us harm if we're nice to other people. That's not how it works. Because like I said, I'm kind of nationalist in the way that I'd like Britain to be a strong country, but not to go and invade other people. Just have your own strong army and like, nuclear deterrent and everything to act as a deterrent so other people don't fuck with you or your interests. But so like I said, I'm national socialist, but not the funny kind of the bad policies of putting people in camps, as in have a strong nation and have, like maybe high taxes where everybody benefits, but people also do have to contribute, But like I said, the problem is that a lot of politics stuff is theoretical. And like I said, I think reform is probably the least bad option we've got in the UK at the moment, because at least they seem to understand there are some big problems in the UK that need sorting out. But also, as lots of people say, reform are very much one of the big capitalist kind of tied in ones where, there probably wouldn't be a lot of workers' rights and things like that. I'll have to look up all of them, speaker of purity. But to be honest, like I said, I don't want to spend the whole fucking stream talking about politics. Again, I think with a lot of them, it just depends how sensible the people are running the governments. Because like I said, throughout history, there's been really bad communist governments and some that haven't been as bad. And like we were saying the same thing with the fascists, that it really depends, I think, on how just sensible a government is, regardless of their policies. Yeah, I think, Rocky, they might be trying to steer more in that direction just because they know a lot of people are kind of at the bottom of society now and need a way out. Because obviously, yeah, that like housing, for example, in the UK is one of those things that I don't know anybody my age. I think there were 2 people I went to school with out of, going to school with a couple of hundred people that, not that I'm still in like good contact with them, but, I knew well enough to know that they actually got a house, but mostly because loads of their relatives gave them money when they got married kind of thing. But nearly everybody else I know has to rent and spend nearly all their income on rent or still lives with their parents like I do. Because, again, one of my mates works 40 to 50 hours a week, not on minimum wage, a bit over minimum wage as far as I'm aware. And he can't afford to, move out unless he's like flat sharing, kind of, doing all that sort of stuff. So it is, a bit, it is shit like that, that there are lots of people that work really hard and they get fuck all for it. Because, like I said, it's basically, it seems in the UK, unless you inherit housing, you're stuck in a rent trap forever. Yeah, as Echo said, all right, Rajiv. So yeah, speaking of just the OZK suits and that again, lots of my communist NBC suits don't smell as bad as the OZK suit, but mine just smells really bad. But other people have said their OZK suits don't smell bad. So again, it probably depends, like Echo saying, where it's been stored, and as if anything else has been like kind of, like did any chemicals spill on it? And I don't mean like chemical warfare stuff. I just mean, was it stored in a factory with like weird other smelly stuff that has then got into it? Was it stored somewhere where it got damp and all that? I just collect them, Ninja Man, as you probably know if you've looked at the channel for long enough. Because as I said before, and I've explained this lots of times, with gas masks, at one point when I was getting into a lot of surplus and doing videos on it, gas masks were like one of the few things that were affordable, as in, like helmets to be whatever price range. Gas masks at one point, even if they were like unissued in their bag with spare filters and everything else, used to be bloody cheap. Even S10s used to be about £30 at one point, so like $40. So they used to be one of those things that you could buy and not break the bank doing it to do videos on. Let me just put that, Rich, into Google. And again, I always have the problem, Rich, as I said, like I say to Rajiv and everyone else. Is this Ordinary Man Reserve Police Battalion 101 and the final solution in Poland or something else? This is written by Christopher Browning. Yeah, that is the one. So I'll just read out the plot summary because Rich brought it up. Ordinary Man has been admired all over the world and is now published in the UK for the first time. It takes as its basis the detailed records of one squad from the Nazis' extermination groups. I assume that's Einsatzgruppen then. And explores in detail its composition, its actions, and the methods by which it was trained to perform acts of genocide on an industrial scale. He introduces us to a cheerily friendly ordinary man who killed without hesitation or apparent remorse for years on end, in docile obedience to an authority they happily accepted as legitimate. It is a valuable corrective to the idea of German uniqueness and offers a much more chilling picture of humans being as avidly suggestible and desperate for an organizing purpose in their life, however disgusting. Yeah, sounds interesting. But it's like with all the social experiments that have been done, you can get people, if you tell them an authority figure's telling you to do it, to do horrible things. Yeah, another good point Echo's made, that yeah, if it's in a well-ventilated place for long enough, it might, get rid of some of the smell. Stanford prison experiment. There was the one as well where people were being told they were electrocuting somebody and they may potentially even kill them. But a doctor, a fake doctor was watching over it saying, "Nah, it's all right, shock him again, shock him again." And most people would shock it because they believed the doctor or somebody in a position of authority knew best. Again, nobody was really being shocked. It was just somebody, shouting into a microphone every time they pressed the button. It was, again, one of those sort of thought experiments, where people, despite the fact they could hear somebody screaming in pain, if a man in a lab coat or a high-vis vest was going to shock him again, most people would do it. If the UK gave everybody a Second Amendment right now, I think things might kick off very quickly in this country. Because you can't simply just move to America. You'd have to get a visa and then have a job lined up for you and everything else. I think with most countries, you can't just simply move to them. This is the weird thing with a lot of illegal immigration, like we have in the UK, is it's easier to get into this country and be allowed to stay if you come over illegally, for example, into the UK, than it is if you're actually a skilled person who wants to get a job. Because again, this is a problem lots of people have. Say an English person marries somebody from another country that's a doctor or whatever. Sometimes even for a doctor, it's really hard for them to get British citizenship, even though they're working and bringing in money and everything else and not sponging off the system. Whereas if you come over here illegally and go, "Oh, you can't send me back because, I'll be killed," even though I can't prove that, the government says, "All right, here's a load of free shit. You can stay forever." Yeah, as Ninja Man says. So, yeah. So this is the really weird bloody thing, and it's like this for lots of countries, where we've got this kind of really weird system of the people who don't contribute get put to the top of the queue, and people that would actually contribute to your country are basically told to fuck off. Yeah, like Photonic Inductions had that, and a load of other channels I've watched have had that, Rich, where, yeah, they marry somebody from another country that's actually qualified. Am I from Asia? No, I'm clearly not from Asia, am I? Asian people don't talk like this to start with. But yeah, so basically, and don't forget to like the stream, everyone. Yeah, so basically, yeah, like, so Photonic Inductions, I'm Australian, am I? I don't remember Ninja Man, but like Photonic Inductions thing was that I think he married an Indian woman that was a doctor or like a nurse. And like the UK government kept putting more and more obstacles in the way of her getting citizenship, despite the fact she was married to an English person. And like, yeah, and that's happened with apparently loads of things. Because again, I was watching a thing where it was like some medical student that was over here, you know, on a work visa, like, you know, training with the NHS and that, you know, so they were actually, if you went to hospital, they might be one of the people patching you up or whatever. And they constantly had to report how much they were earning, you know, where they were currently living and all this sort of bullshit, which all the illegal immigrants don't have to do. Because the government was saying, oh yeah, fuck you if you're actually contributing and paying taxes over here. All right, Peugeot? So yeah, there's lots of really fucking weird examples like that where, yeah, people, foreigners that actually come here and want to contribute get shit on by the government. And basically, you know, if they'd have come over on a dinghy, they might get everything handed to them on a platter. But if they come over here and work and try their best and, you know, are nice people that contribute to the country, despite the fact they're the sort of people we would want as immigrants, they're the ones the government tells basically, you know, puts as many obstacles in the way of as possible. I listened to the first one you linked, Rajiv, that I replied to. I haven't listened to the other one yet, just because I haven't actually been on much on the PC, in all honesty, other than when I've been doing videos. No, Kevin, but I'll search that up as well. And again, this will be all the stuff where I forget after the end of the stream. The Act of Killing is a 2012 documentary, right? Let me bookmark that and hope I don't forget it, like the one Richard was on about as well. I like Trump in his first term. I don't quite know what the fuck Trump is doing in his second term, if that makes sense. As in his first term, he was kind of like a celebrity president that at least had advisors around him that knew what they were doing. In his second term, he really seems to be like, with all this shit over Greenland that now might break apart NATO. No, I didn't hear his speech earlier. What did he do earlier, Rajiv? But I know he's getting really fucking anal about Greenland now, because it was the whole thing. Right, Trump touts first year wins at White House as Macron versus shift to world without rules. I have to have a look. I don't, with Macron on the stage with the glass sunglasses, do you reckon his wife had given him a black eye again? Or do you reckon he was really high on drugs, so he wanted glasses on so people couldn't see the fact he was off his head? But yeah, I'll have to watch Trump's speech later on then. But like I said, it's like with the tariff stuff. There might be some tariffs that would help the USA, but there are going to be a lot of tariffs that will literally fuck over Americans. And again, like I said, I'm not stupidly like pro-Trump or anti-Trump. Like, you know, I certainly don't think he's the evil orange man. No, normally freedom of information requests, Pergio, take like months, don't they, to be responded to? Let me have a look on that Pathways one though. Pathways freedom of information request. whatdottheyknow.com. Currently waiting for a response from East Riding of Yorkshire Council. They should respond promptly and normally no later than 6th of February 2026. So they've got about 2 weeks to respond. And yeah, like I said, this is a thing of hang on, there's another thing here. I think the response here is more like them saying they're going to get back to the person. There's a couple of images. I'm just going to have a look. I'll just download them and have a look. They're like attachments, because I can't actually see the attachments without opening what they've put on there. One of them is just, oh, they're stupid, just fucking like where a council's in bed fucking So I don't think there's been a proper response yet anyway. I think that's like one of those thank you for getting in touch with us, we'll get back to you kind of emails written in legalese. But I doubt they want us to know how much money they spent on pathways, because I bet you it wasn't just like 10 grand, 20 grand. I bet it will be somewhere between like 100 grand and a million, knowing how our government throws money away. Yeah, I mean, it's already, though, turning into a dumpster fire, though, isn't it, for them, with the Amelia memes and stuff like that? Like I said, because my videos on that are getting way more views than normal. It's kind of funny that you could do political videos, which a lot of people wouldn't watch. And then if you put a cute girl with purple hair in, or like pink purple hair, suddenly everybody cares about the point. You know, nobody cared who I was until I put on the mask. Yeah, but if you've seen the thing already, Ninja Man, where a lot of this was like NATO won't step up and protect its territory, loads of NATO nations then send troops to Greenland, then Trump gets really shitty over it. It's also like how the US has bases on Greenland and they'd be allowed to expand them and put more troops there, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to use it as point, like, I need it because of the rare earths. But again, like I said, the whole Greenland thing is, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Yeah, nobody cared until I was an alt girl. Yeah, exactly. For you. What if Russia invaded Europe? They invaded Ukraine. I mean, do you mean like EU countries or NATO countries? They're not really in any fucking state to do it anymore, because obviously the Russian army is ground to a standstill now in Ukraine. They've lost what, like 1.5 million men at this point? Let's have a look. Russian losses in Ukraine. Even if you think some of these might be high numbers, we know that they're constantly trying to pull more men into the army to go there, and they're not really rotating people off the line. So, yeah, 1.2 million dead and wounded. And when they may say wounded, they mean like limbs blown off kind of wounded. So, again, the sheer amount, the main thing is just the sheer amount of their Soviet stockpile of like tanks and armored vehicles they've lost. Yeah, like Welsh Matthew said, it's not good for either side, but Russia really is not in a state now where they could invade anyone else. Yeah, even this is the thing, that even if America didn't join in with like any of the European NATO things, like Poland now, I think if Russia is still tied up in Ukraine and then they opened a front and Poland got involved, that would be it for them. Like, I'm not saying about them going all the way to Moscow, but I just mean like, you know, the rest of their shit getting completely decimated. Well, it doesn't matter if you think drone warfare is cowardice. It doesn't matter because both sides are going to use it. That's like saying machine guns aren't noble or whatever else. Nobody gives a fuck in a war. You know, the winning side is what uses the winning tech. They're not going to go, oh no, I'm not going to use this gun because it's not, you know, it's not honorable or whatever else. You know, we're just going to turn more and more into like a Skynet version of the future where a lot of killing is automated. Yeah, no such thing as a fair fight. Yeah. Is artillery honorable? You know, is a machine gun honorable? A landmine's honorable? It doesn't really matter. What matters if a side wins or not. So yeah, both sides use drones in Ukraine because, you know, that means, again, they have like a 30 to 50 kilometer with the fiber optic drones now, just killing field for the drones, where it's basically like almost 50 kilometers in no man's land, and you can't really advance into it before you get spotted by a recon drone or then just slammed into by an FPV. They already are using chemical warfare in Ukraine. They're using what's the name of the fucking thing they've been using? It's like a really nasty riot control agent. It's not one like CS. It's one that actually kills people. Colopicrin, something like that, isn't it? It's called. And they've been documented to be using that in Ukraine quite a lot. Again, they're not using nerve agents or anything really effective, but chloropicrin was working quite well until the Ukrainians being issued gas masks, because they could drop it into trenches and the soldiers would have to come out the trenches into the open where they could be shelled. Again, but if they went to that, if Russia started using chemical weapons, some NATO countries might then donate to Ukraine some really long-range ballistic missiles. It's a bit like how there was basically a thing where Russia was told off the books, as far as we're aware, that if you used a tactical nuke in Ukraine, like there would be a massive Western military, you know, conventional strike against, say, all of their navy or whatever. So that's why they've not done it, because even if they could, Yeah, I don't know about that invalid, but like I said, with riot agents, there's like CN and CS, which are like normal tear gas, and then there's a couple of other like really nasty riot agents that most countries don't use because of the fact that, you know, it's more likely to permanently cause disfigurement or you know, death or whatever. And again, if a Western government did that, they'd be really in fucking trouble. Like, even if, you know, the government itself got away using it against their own people, you know, like, even though the UN is useless and stuff like that, you know, if you'd get sanctioned to shit, you know, if let's say Starmer decides that at a protest, rather than CS being used, they were going to use something like chloropicrine, and then, you know, the elderly and the children in the crowds died and it caused a stampede that killed more people or whatever, that would lead to just the UK being turned into a sanctioned nightmare country. Again, it's like Iran at the moment are using chemical weapons now because of the Ayatollah losing regime. Don't know a native speaking to there. But yeah, they have a scoring system for the drones, like the Ukrainian drone operator. I don't know if the Russians are doing a similar thing, but they were doing a thing where basically you got different amounts of points for what you blew up. So like, say, blowing up an infantryman might get you 1 point, blowing up like a light vehicle might get you 2 or 3 points, you know, an infantry fighting vehicle or a tank might get you 5 or 10 points, and then they can spend those points on more drone equipment. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that 1/3 of the population is medically unfit. What K-mite was the gas? Let me have a look. Bromobenzyl cyanide, known as military K-mite, is an obsolete. That's so lacumating, is it like makes your throat all swell up, doesn't it? Introduced in World War I by the Allied powers, but yeah, it's got cyanide in its fucking name. Yeah, use against protesters in 2024. Despite it being described as obsolete, Georgian authorities appear to have used K-mite in November 2024 against civil protesters in Tbilisi, adding it to the water in a water cannon aimed at people, according to the BBC News investigation. So yeah, I'm assuming because it's got cyanide in the name, it can fucking kill you, that stuff. But yeah, like I said, the older kind of riot agents before CS and CN, even though CS and CN are quite nasty, were way, way nastier, as in people that, you know, didn't have any lung problems can still be killed by them, sort of thing. But what do you mean in response to drone warfare by Ukraine? Both sides use drone warfare. Like I said, both sides in Ukraine do the exact same shit to each other in terms of drones and whatever else. It's not like one side started using drones, the other said, oh, we have to use drones now. Drones have been going on now in wars for quite a while. It was like in the Nagorno-Karabakh one with Armenia and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan trounced Armenia because they were using drones, which the Armenians really hadn't thought of doing. You know, so they were dropping the frags from the things and using quadcopters and everything. I don't know, in all honesty, classified official. Again, it depends. Can they contribute anything useful? Like I said, I'm not somebody to ask about who should we conscript or not. I do know there was a thing, wasn't there, though, where apparently a lot of ex-soldiers can now apparently be called up again, or the government wanted to put that in, and it's led to a load of soldiers saying, "No way, am I fucking, you know, serving this government?" Yeah. Again, it's like when people say that about guns, isn't it, Echo? It's like, again, a bolt action rifle is obsolete to an assault rifle, but if somebody shoots you one, you're still fucking dead. You know, there's a lot of things like that with war. Yeah, again, I've not seen a really like proper. Let's see if I can find an actual news article on this, because I've seen YouTubers talking about it, which are ex-army YouTubers, but I've not actually seen any proper news article about it. So UK age 65 veterans, something like that. I'll just type in. All right, here we go. So veterans can be recalled for service until they are 65 under new measures. The changes will be in effect from spring 2027, but won't apply to those who have already left the military unless they opt in. So in theory, is it only people that join the army now that are going to be forced to do this? Because again, if it's you have to opt in and you've already left the army, all those people can just say fuck off. But yeah, it's because they've not been funding the army properly for years over here, and now they're suddenly like, oh, there's actually threats. There's always been threats. They just didn't want to fund it. But yeah, it's because they need meat infantry for however bad it gets or something. Yeah, another one like that called Exploiter is Switzerland. Most Swiss people are armed to the fucking teeth because of various things about people being able to be called up as like militias. Yet they have very rare mass shootings in Switzerland, so people aren't, you know, depressed and in poverty, basically. But yeah, so anyway, what else can we bring up? Like I said, I'm gonna have to look at all this Trump stuff later. Europe hits back at the hungry caterpillar Trump. What? Why are they calling him the hungry caterpillar? That's a kid's book. The Very Hungry Caterpillar, where the caterpillar eats the way through the pages. I want a kind of a Trump version of that, where he's just eating through the pages now. So Greenland tension still escalating. Oh, he's still speaking live at the moment, Trump. He's been going 40 minutes. He's defending his territory. Mr. President, fuck off. What's this? Away from Mr. Trump's speech in the White House press room, a Danish MEP has told the US president to fuck off. Anders Verestien, or something, a member of the Danish People's Party and chief whip of the Patriots for Europe group, said, "Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, fuck off." That's not really Danish accent, but still. But yeah, I'll have to be looking up all this Trump stuff a bit later, because yeah, it's a typical thing that although I've watched some stuff today, it's been like stuff that's been from a few hours ago / a day ago, of like, you know, news reports on it and all the stuff going on. So yeah, I'm missing all the exciting stuff going on. Yeah, eating through an atlas. But again, the problem I think with Trump for the tariffs, you know, if you want to say how it will hurt America, is this is where China is being really smart. Because what China is doing now, every time the Americans put massive tariff on there, they literally go over and say, oh, do you want to do a really good trade deal with us? Yeah, the very orange, hungry president. Yeah, Pergio. Somebody did say in the comments of one of the videos I was watching about the Greenland stuff, why don't they just give Trump Epstein's Islands, then he'll feel right at home? I thought that was quite funny. Right, so with the ice shooting, and bear in mind, I'm not fully, completely, you know, I'm just saying this as a disclaimer, I don't watch every fucking thing that comes out. But from the video I've seen of that Karen in the car, where she had been told several times to get out, and then she rams the agent in front of her with her car. Again, maybe she didn't ram him hard enough for it to be fatal or whatever, but, you know, knowing fucking US cops, if I was in America and the US cop was, you know, giving me orders, I would fucking do it straight away, because I know how trigger happy they are. And, you know, I guess she fucked about and found out. Again, that doesn't mean they were justified, but it is kind of a Darwin Award where you have people that are very trigger happy and you don't comply with them. Because I've seen enough YouTube videos of people that are trying to comply with the police that still end up getting shot. Like the fucking Simon Says one, where there was like some disabled guy and somebody said they thought he had a gun or something. And the cop's telling him to crawl like one hand forward or something. And then because the guy goes to pull his trousers up with his hand, they fucking mag dump him to death, and the cop got away with it. And I thought that one was pretty unjustified. But again, I can still why some people saying, oh, but the cop might have thought he was reaching for a gun in his like waistband or whatever. But if a cop can get away with shooting somebody like that in America, then a Karen that rams you with her car, you know, really has it coming. And again, it seems like Minnesota, yeah, like that's what I'm saying, that to start with, everybody was going, oh, she barely touched him, but that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, regardless of if she'd have killed him or not, she was a fucking idiot for not getting out her car. What if China went boom? What do you mean? As in, what if China got attacked? China's military is like one of the biggest and most powerful in the world now. Again, some of their tech hasn't been tested in real life, unlike America, and China does lag a bit tech-wise behind America, but I would not want to fuck with China if I was a country now, not even America. Like, you know, I think it's kind of going to turn into 1984 with the power blocks, where you're going to have Trump as Oceania, you know, I'm going to have Greenland Airstrip 1, and then you're going to have China and East Asia, and then I don't think you're going to have Eurasia with Russia because Russia's too incompetent to actually be like the USSR. Yeah, not United States of Eurasia. Yeah, sounds right. Again, I keep hearing that. I don't know if there's any proof of it. But again, like I said, I don't want to get too much into this stream on the fucking politics of this country's better than that country. But anyway, going back to the ICE thing, because at least, like I said, that's something we can talk about where there's stuff about that. All right, again, the person that keeps making weird fucking comments, I'm getting rid of now. Because, again, if you make too many weird comments in a row, it does make me think you're kind of trying to agitate something. But, yeah, so with the ICE stuff, it's, like I said, I was trying to explain this to one of my friends, because one of my friends was kind of like, the ICE people are like brown shirts or whatever. And I was like, but also the fucking Karens egging them on and, like, you know, actually pouring like icy water on the pavement so they slip up and are now like walking around with guns and blocking traffic. The whole thing is a fucking, you know, clusterfuck of a thing, isn't it? Like, I do think if Trump wanted to stay in power forever in America, he could be, look at these people starting civil war in my country. I've got to send in the army. But yeah, so another interesting, yeah, gas mask. That's like I'm saying is like, see, people seem to want you to take one of the sides on it, and it's like I would rather live in a country, say I'm American, where you didn't have crazy Karens stopping people from actually arresting illegal immigrants if they're illegal immigrants. But I also don't like the idea of the state breathing down your neck constantly and sending stormtroopers everywhere. So, like I said, maybe I'm, you know, splinters in my ass from sitting on the fence. Which Winston? I certainly don't look like Winston Churchill. If that's what you mean. Do you mean another Winston, what, from 1984 or what? If, well, an American civil war would just lead to everybody else carrying on as usual, just where they wouldn't be able to buy stuff from America. But yeah, so this is what I'm saying is, like, with the ICE thing, I don't think it's particularly in Minnesota. I don't think it's particularly good for anyone. Did a lot of this ICE stuff start? It's called me a troll. Oh well. With a lot of this stuff in Minnesota, did this start because of all the Somali daycares and all that, like the fake places that were scamming all the tax money? And then you had like Kamala's running mate, didn't you, Tim Walz, who's the person in charge of that, just isn't cooperating with the government? Is that basically what's going on in Minnesota? Because again, I'm an outsider, like I said. I'm not even American. I only really know about what's going on it from other stuff. And again, when you watch other people discuss it, it's completely always bent with their political opinion. You know, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. Right, so yeah, because I saw the Nick Shirley thing where they find all those like things where they're blatant scams. Yeah, so the Nick Shirley video. So he went around and exposed those scams. The Leering Center, yes. And then there's also one they did, wasn't there, about cars, like for things like transport companies that don't transport anybody, and all that. So it does seem like Minnesota is one of these places that there is a lot of fucking scamming going on. And again, some of the, yeah, and don't, surely you can't be serious and don't call me Shirley, yeah. And it does seem like with Minnesota, I've heard people say it's because basically the government doesn't want to investigate a lot of this fraud because they're relying on the Somalis voting for them or something like that. And again, this is the problem we have in the UK, for example, where lots of the politicians won't say anything again about Islamists and whatever because they want the Muslim vote. But, you know, there are Muslims that say, you know, it is actually really insulting to us that you'd rather have the, you know, scummy ones that are going to commit terrorism and stuff like that vote for you than normal Muslims who just want to live like a normal person. All right, Byron. Yeah, it's, yeah, import people and then get them to vote for you. Yeah, and like we're saying, it does seem to be the thing all around the world, doesn't it? That you import people that don't really follow the laws, but then you don't arrest them because then you hope they're a voter bloc for you. And that's also not working for Labour in the UK because a lot of the more Islamic-minded voters, let's say, are voting for the more extreme parties now. like the Greens or Corbyn's party or like independent Gaza MPs, even though the UK has nothing to fucking do with Gaza anymore. You know, you could say that Gaza might have been a UK thing when Britain used to run Palestine and, you know, like in the 40s or whenever, but we don't anymore. So it's got nothing to fucking do with us. So why do they constantly go around in London like whinging about freeing Palestine? I don't give a shit. It's nothing to do. Palestine and Israel and that is nothing to do with the UK. But people here keep bringing it up. Yeah, well, like, so this is the whole thing of the grooming gangs, right? State of the Mind podcast. There's loads of people that are actual Muslims that live normally and, you know, and not like terrorists, basically, who are like, you know, people getting raped, kids getting raped, you know, and pimped out. We want that to stop. But when the politicians like, oh, you can't talk about it and all this, it's like, so you're lumping every Muslim in with the people that go around pimping kids. So like, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, you have to just link me to loads of those in a row, Rajiv, so I can listen to them when I've got a chance to just listen to music rather than doing whatever else. But yeah. But, and this is the thing, because apparently, even when I was doing like the research into all these prevent things earlier, right, for the fucking, you know, Amelia red pilling you on the prevent program, sometimes the people that got reported to prevent, say like the Muslim terrorists, they were reported by other Muslims who were like, this guy's nuts, he's going to blow himself up or blow somebody up. That's how they got into prevent. And then these people going like, oh no, you're being racist, I ain't going to do anything. And then they went, oh, okay, then off you go. And then they went and blew somebody up. And some Islamic countries now, like actual Islamic countries, don't like their people coming to Britain in fear they'll be radicalized. Because, you know, like in some Muslim countries, they actually ban some of the more extremist Muslim political parties because they don't want people, you know, trying to make a caliphate or whatever in their fucking country. Yeah, in Britain, we don't ban them. So they're worried that, you know, people from their countries will visit Britain and then become radicalized. Yeah, UAE. I saw a thing like that. I think it was somebody from Kazakhstan or one of the stands like that. They came to Britain and they said they went to their local mosque, you know, after coming to Britain to study, you know, and they just wanted to go to mosque so they could pray when they were doing all like their university studies. And they found the mosque really dodgy and they were worried about radicalization in it. And they were asking online, and again, they were asking on Reddit, so you know a bit of, because we know like, what Reddit's like. They were asking on Reddit, like, yeah, I'm a bit worried about some of the people in my mosque. How do I report this to people, you know, anonymously? Because I'm just a bit worried about radicalization. And there were people and they going, oh, you fucking racist. What do you know? They're just expressing their religious beliefs and all that. It's like, wow. So people who aren't Muslim are telling an actual Muslim person not to report actual Islamists because it will be racist. It's like, yeah, what a fucking weird sheltered existence. But yeah, are we on about a base Turk like Ataturk? Is that what A Native's on about? Because Ataturk was all right. I also like the Chechen guy who fought the first Chechen war against Russia. I can't remember his name, but he had a cool moustache, that guy. But again, not Kadyrov and those scumbags that came later. But, you know, like I said, because I don't think all Muslim people are bad or whatever, like with all these things. But the problem is when the government stops saying, oh, you can't deal with legit crime coming from a certain group because that would be racist or whatever. So just shut up and don't notice and let things get worse and worse. That is a problem. And somebody saying about Iran, yeah, Iran's, I'm hoping it's going to be the end of the Ayatollah. I now and again get people on here that go, oh, don't believe the Israeli propaganda and all that. But, you know, every Iranian I've met that's fled Iran and never lived in the UK have been very nice secular people and talk about how much of a shithole Iran is under the Ayatollah. And, you know, even if it was bad under the Shah, it wasn't as bad as what they've got now. So, you know, I really do hope for the Iranians that, you know, because they are just being gunned down in the street for protesting. So, you know, I am hoping that, you know, the regime does fall and they can go to being a country where, you know, they actually have basic human rights. Yeah, again, State of Mind podcast, that's a bit like me, but what I'm saying is you keep getting stuff forced upon you where people are, oh, you have to have an opinion on it. You have to have an opinion on it. It's like, it's a war in a place in the Middle East where people are constantly fighting each other over Holy Land. And, you know, Christians, Muslims, and Jews all think it's their Holy Land. So, you know, it's like, I don't really give a fuck, you know, like October the 7th, when they went into Israel and killed all those people. Yeah, I can understand why Israel retaliated. Did Israel go over the top? Maybe they did, but, you know, it's not my business because, you know, I'm not Jewish. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a very like moderate Christian that just slightly believes in God. Most of my friends are atheists or whatever. Some are a couple of other religions. I just don't give a shit. I just wish people were nice to each other. But then it's like, oh, you have to take a side. You have to take a side. It's like, but this has nothing to do with Britain, does it? So, and again, I don't want to police the world and tell people in other countries how to live. Yeah, I've heard classified official that, Britain was one of the ones that destabilized Iran and fucked the Shah over. But again, like I said, I don't know too much about it. But I know that, like I said, it was one of those things, wasn't it, with all the fucking geopolitics of the Cold War of everybody backstabbing and fucking each other over. Yeah, well, because it is a jihad and everything, isn't it, Rajiv, in the book and in the Lynch film? They call it the jihad still, and they use the like Arabic type words for the fadakin or whatever it is. But yeah, in the more modern Dunes, they've moved away from that. That's why David Lynch's Dune is still the best one. I think the one that's really low budget but accurate to the book, the sci-fi series one, probably still called it Jihad and all that. But yeah. The David Lynch Dune I really fucking like because it's got like the Toto electric guitar music in it. It's got the really cool like sets that inspired 40K. It's got a genuinely disgusting Baron Harkonnen in it. He's basically a fat nonce in like the book in the David Lynch one. And I think that was another thing, wasn't it, that in Villeneuve's or whatever his name is, Dune, that the Baron Harkonnen wasn't a gay paedophile anymore because, that might offend gay people. Well, I think most gay people aren't paedophiles, so they probably wouldn't be offended by him just being a degenerate, fucking, like, horrible person. But, the whole thing of Baron Harkonnen is he started off like a normal straight man, and then he got more and more depraved, doing more and more fucked up stuff, because of power. So, he turns into like one of the elites, basically, like that rule over us, that probably, do child sacrifice and whatever else. Oh, right, Rajiv, if you haven't seen it, I will find it for you on Steam. But well, as in it's not on Steam, but I'll find a link for you and post it on Steam. There's a really good fan cut of it because basically David Lynch filmed like maybe 3 or 4 hours worth of footage for it, and then the studio didn't give him final cut and cut it down to about 2 hours or whatever it was. So although I like the theatrical bit of it, there's still a lot of the story cut out. And there's a really good fan edit where because there was a really long like couple of parts made. It wasn't made for TV, but where they like stuck all of David Lynch's footage into a much longer TV thing. But then the pacing's meant to be really bad. So there's some really good fan edits where what they've done, I think it's called the Spice Diver edit. They've got all the footage that's basically in the theatrical release, plus some of the stuff from the TV bit. So because some of the deleted scenes shouldn't have been deleted because they explain bits in the plot and are really well shot and everything. So it's longer than the film, but it's not as long as if you watch the like completely unedited cut down cut, like the uncut version basically. And that's very, very good, the Spice Divers edit, because it has enough of the book in it and stuff like that. The bits that aren't actually explained in Lynch's film are explained again. A lot of this wasn't Lynch's fault. He filmed all this stuff, and then the studio's like, oh, it's too long. We can't have that. But he never, Aronofsky's Dune or whatever, he never actually made the film, does he? There's Aronofsky's Dune or whatever it's called, the one where they talk about what it could have been like, his one, but he never made it because he just blew all the money doing fuck all. And that's why it eventually went to Lynch, because it went to Ridley Scott before Lynch. And then I think it was Ridley Scott's brother died during, I know, you're on about the documentary, I know, but I'm saying he never actually did. And then, Ridley Scott, I think, was going to do it. But then Ridley Scott's brother, I think it was, died while Ridley Scott was involved with it. So again, the project kind of like got cancelled and kicked into the grass again. And then because Lynch had just done The Elephant Man and weirdly didn't want to do Star Wars Return of the Jedi, because there's a very good video about that where he's like, and George was talking to me about these things called Wookiees, and I was just getting this headache. Where like Lynch is doing that. But yeah, Lynch did do Dune, and it was the last time he worked with Hollywood because he really fucking hated how he was treated. But I really like Lynch's Dune, like I said, because it's very atmospheric. It's just very visually interesting. Like I said, the best way of enjoying Dune is read the book, because Frank Herbert's book is still the best version of it. But Lynch's Dune is very stylish and very interesting to look at, and it's one of those films I've watched lots of times because the soundtrack is fucking great. You really get pumped up when the guitars come in, when they like all swarm out the caves near the end of Fremen to kick some ass. And again, there could be a good Amelia edit of that, the Long Live the Fighters bit. Anyway, I'll go back to some comments I was missing because sorry, I was speaking about Dune and getting very passionate about it. Fanka Dawn of the Dead, what, the original or the remake? Yeah, like the same thing as with Israel is, yeah, they buy a lot of the tech from America and whatever, and there's lots of lobbying to do with Israel and that. State of Mind said, I am bisexual, why should that offend me? What, you're on about the Baron? Again, it's like, speaking like all the bisexual stuff, like, again, this is why I hate a lot of the fucking, you know, you have to choose a side on politics kind of shit. It's because, like, I know two people who are really nice people who are trans, you know, one's male to female, one's female to male, and they are certainly not like, oh, I've got a beard and I'm going to go into a bathroom and pervert people kind of, you know, thing that always gets brought up when people talk about trans things. And again, like, I don't think trans stuff should be put on kids at all. I think, you know, people should not be allowed to transition until they get to 18 and they can make an adult's choice about it. But if it's somebody with like serious gender dysphoria who is not happy how they are and they want to then as an adult make these choices, I don't have an issue with it. But you know, it's all this like where people are like, oh, you have to have a really strong feeling on it either way. I'm like, well, no, because yeah, and it's also like State of Mind podcast. It's like we had this problem in the UK where like Nicola Sturgeon, I think it was in the SNP, the Scottish National Party, decided it would be a good idea to let men who hadn't done any transitioning, like not even taken like hormone blockers or what's the other thing they take? You know, like all the estrogen and that. I'm trying to remember the proper word for it. Can't remember the thing. Word for it now. But you know, that sort of stuff. So there was this guy that hadn't done any of that was a fucking sex offender, you know, like a rapist or a paedophile or whatever. Bloke with a beard and all this shit. And then when he got arrested or whatever for being a nonce, he went, oh, I'm actually identifying as a woman. And then the Scottish government said, yeah, you can go to a women's prison. And guess what? Then he started raping women in the women's prison. Because, you know, that kind of like, oh, we'll just take everybody. And this is, again, why I was saying I don't like the Green Party is because of all this. Wow, if somebody like that identifies as a woman, they must be a woman kind of thing, you know. Just like we'll sing Kumbaya and nobody will ever attack the UK if we didn't have any army or didn't have any nukes. Everything will be perfect. It's like, no, the world isn't like that. Nicola Sturgeon, yeah, they had Alex Salmon first in the SNP, who died a couple of years ago now. Then they had Nicola Sturgeon, and then they had the really, really bad virtue signaling oppression Olympics. What was his name? Oh, Hamza Yusuf or something, because people called him Hamza Useless. And then he was like, that's racist, you can't call me that. But he was basically like an even worse like identity politic one. Yeah, Hamza Yusuf, he's the one that did the white speech, wasn't he? Where he talked about how it's disgusting that white people have jobs and all this. If you haven't seen it, yeah, you know, again, brown people can be racist too. Black people can be racist too. Everybody can be a racist, horrible cunt, you know. Doesn't matter if you're white being nasty to black or, you know, brown people, or if you're a black person saying that, you know, whites or Asians shouldn't be allowed something. And he was also one that kept whinging about fucking Palestine, and everybody's like, don't care. What's that got to do with Scotland? What's that got to do with the UK? I don't give a shit. Again, when I say I don't give a shit about Palestine, again, it's fucking horrible. Kids get there getting blown up and all that. But what I'm saying is, you know, it's not the UK's business, Palestine or Israel or any of that. So what I'm saying is, why is this coming up ahead of actual stuff in the UK that we need to solve out? I know Chris Chan is the weird, like, fat lol cow. Yeah, I don't know. Again, one of my friends is really into all the Chris Chan lore. I don't know much about it, in all honesty. Like, you know, a lot of the lol cows I don't really pay attention to. But yeah, there's a thing. If you search Hamza Yusuf white, I'm going to see if I can find this now. Hamza Yusuf. Because people, when Scotland started making the hate crime things even more than Britain, like England. Oh Oh, and when Hamza Useless stepped down, he said it was racist bigots why you failed. No, it's because you were a fucking shit political person. I'm trying to just find a video of him fucking going like, this person white, that person white. I can find people reacting to it, but I'm trying to find the original fucking video now. Oh, and here's some stupid media thing. Claims Hamza Yusuf made anti-white speech is false. He fucking did make an anti-white speech. So this site is like a gaslighting, one of these like stupidly lefty ones of don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears. So when somebody is complaining that people in positions are white, and therefore it offends him because everybody in all these positions aren't, you know, I guess his kind of brown, that's called fucking racism. The person who gets a job should be the best candidate for that job, regardless of skin color or whatever else. Because again, like say we have a finance minister, you know, like we got Rachel Reeves, Rachel from accounts, Rachel from complaints. If there was a black person doing that job who could actually manage the economy and not be fucking it up like she is, I'd welcome that. But no, it's again, I'm just trying to see if I can find this there's a GB News one. I'm just going to skip through this and see if I can, if they've actually got the original clip in it. No, they haven't. But yeah, there's, again, annoyingly, I can't find you to link, but there is literally a Hamza Yusuf thing where he was whinging about, you know, this person's white, that person's white. Would it also make the ground quite fertile with all the blood and that in it? I don't know. Fertilizer. Yeah, I've watched some of the things about lolcows, but some of them are so disgusting, some of the lolcows, like that paedophile one that wears diapers and pisses and shits in the diapers and then puts the diapers on like a heater or whatever it is. Some of you will know I'm on about. Again, this is why I stopped watching all these videos. I just don't want to know about these fucking degenerates, in all honesty. But yeah, there's one that like dressed up as a baby and said about how he wanted to abuse. That's the one, Pampachu or whatever. Yes. That sometimes I do think when I look at people like that, I think it's more the Asmongold thing. I actually think of that. I'm thinking more. Maybe we need to open up the asylums again. I don't know who Will Stansel is, but let's see if I actually look like him. Will Stansel, American lawyer. Can kind of see it, but not quite. That guy doesn't have a moustache. The one that people used to say I used to look like when I was at school was Will from the In-Betweeners. I can't remember if I'm still subscribed to Vox's productions, like as in like, you know, on Patreon. Because the problem is when I left my job, I did have to cancel some of my Patreons. I'll check for you actually. But yeah, the problem is obviously some of the channels I had to stop subscribing to just because of the fact that you know, I didn't have as much money coming in. And again, while I do like supporting some channels financially, there does get a point where, yeah, I'm still subscribed. Right, so the channels I'm still memberships for, I'll read them out on Patreon. Weapon Collector, Mike comes in these a lot, watches videos a lot. 13 o'clock, they're an American podcast thing, Tom and Jenny, and they do like videos on like serial killers and ghosts and stuff like that. Vox's Productions, I haven't checked him out in a while, I'll have to catch up on his stuff. But yeah, he does the sort of funny reviews of things, doesn't he? And I know he was quite ill for a while, wasn't he? Leo Curse, he's a Scottish comedian that's very funny, like Frankie Boyle before he went woke. I think he's technically got 2 English parents, but he considers himself Scottish because he grew up in Scotland. But he does lots of, you know, very, very politically incorrect humor. Leo Curse is quite good. Rob Ager, he's like a film type person, does good videos on like film breakdowns and stuff like that. Again, some people don't like him. Stuart Millard, he's just like makes what kind of nostalgia YouTube videos. Again, seems quite lefty from his politics, but his videos are funny, so I don't mind. Because, like I said, I can watch people if they're left and right wing, you know, or whatever. It doesn't bother me as long as their content's good. Stygian Sagas, very, very good horror story channel. Got bloke in Appalachia. I can't remember if he's in Kentucky or one of the other ones, or Virginia, but he writes his own like fiction that's very, very good. Inside Russia, that's another good channel. Inside Russia is a Russian bloke who had to flee Russia, like, you know, Putin's Russia, and does stuff breaking down all the stuff, how Russia's falling apart, and, you know, translating lots of videos to do with Russia. And as a alter I used to be, or A's alter I used to be subscribed to, don't think I am anymore because of, like I said, just costs of being subscribed to too many pings. And he's one that did like very high effort AI slop. That's a shame. I didn't know about that, John, though. But like I said, I like saying I followed him for quite a while, but I haven't looked at his stuff recently because, again, sometimes you have the problem where YouTube just doesn't fucking recommend you channels you're subscribed to, and I just forget they exist. You know, I'm still paying them on Patreon every month, but I just forget they exist. No, I don't know who that is. Oh, Frankie Boyle went really, really woke. So Frankie Boyle used to be really fucking funny, right? And do offensive humor. And then basically his whole thing was, the only offensive humor I'll do is basically about stupid British people, you know, like stupid white British people. And yeah, he then basically did a thing like, oh, isn't Brexit bad? Like, you know, his joke would be every week, oh, all the fucking idiots that voted for Brexit. And that would be literally his entire shtick. And then he was doing all the like self-flagellation. Oh, I'm sorry about anything offensive I said in the past, all this blah, 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 blah. So yeah, he just basically became completely irrelevant because, you know, he would only ever do offensive jokes towards white people or whatever. You know, if somebody does racist humor, but they're equally racist to everyone, you know, I don't mind. But it's when it's just white British dumbass Brexit voters every fucking, you know, time he opens his mouth. It's like, I've heard this one before. Yeah, well, again, if you ram somebody with your car, you know, that's not a good idea, is it? Again, even in Britain, people get shot for ramming the cops with their cars, because that has happened a couple of times. Probably because they wanted to stay getting media contracts from like the BBC and stuff like that, so that they did whatever their media masters told them. And again, the comedians that stay funny and relevant, you know, are the ones that just, if they get cancelled, they just go independent or whatever. Because again, it's like, again, I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but he's an interesting bloke. Mike Graham, if you know who that is. And he was on Talk TV, and he got kicked off of Talk TV because he may or may not have said something racist or whatever on Facebook. Like, he keeps denying that he did it. They said because he wouldn't hand his phone in and have all his phone cloned that, you know, he was guilty for that reason. But now he's gone independent. He gets more views than he did on Talk TV because Talk TV's kind of shot itself in their foot by firing him. Yeah, Ricky Gervais did the good stab vest adverts, didn't he, for London? And then they didn't let him put that advert up in London. Yeah, his Oscar speech a few years ago was very, very good, wasn't it? Might be more than a few years ago now. You're making me feel old. But yeah, if you didn't see, let me see if I can find a Ricky Gervais thing. Ricky Gervais stab vest advert that Sadiq Khan personally said wasn't allowed. So he was advertising his brand of vodka or something. And here was the advert, look. There you go. Welcome to London. Don't forget your stab vest. So that was just, again, not really showing you anything to do with the vodka, but yeah, that's a good advert. It's true, isn't it? And then, no, Sadiq Khan was like, no, London is perfect. I don't know, I'm doing the Starmer voice for Sadiq Khan, but London's perfectly safe. Only, you know, again, that's the thing where I've noticed a lot the lefties do now is that all of the dangerous places in the UK are completely safe, and anybody that says they're not has never been there, or, you know, it's some right-wing stupid talking point. It's like, no, crime is getting worse in the UK with violent crime. And again, they'll then do the thing of where the politicians edit the numbers by saying, oh wow, because we've reclassified this crime as a different thing, the numbers are actually going down, and they're like, see, number goes down, yay! Even if they personally got mugged, they still wouldn't believe it. But yeah, that's because, like, again, part of the problem we have in the UK is because the police have been so useless at solving certain crimes, people don't report these crimes anymore because it's more of a waste of time reporting the crime, you know, going through all that and not having the police turn up to investigate it. Say, you know, you got mugged, or, you know, had your car broken into and somebody stole something and stuff like that. And then, so people don't report it to the police, and then the police go, look, the numbers are down, not as many people are reporting being robbed, so therefore there's not as many robberies. It's like, no, people have just totally lost faith in the police actually dealing with the issue, you know, solving the issue. Because apparently with a lot of crimes now, the police don't even come out to investigate them. They just literally give you a crime reference number for your insurance. So you can get, like, you know, you can claim off your insurance, and that's it. Oh, well, yeah, Black Belt Barrister's another good YouTube channel, yeah. What is this, all the stuff to do with the BBC trying to get the, yeah, stuff on the BBC to then get the license fee? Again, I don't know the legalities of it. Yeah, channels like Black Belt Barrister are much better to ask than me about all this sort of shit with license fees and whatever, but I know he's pretty pissed off about how the BBC intimidates people over the license fee, so good on him. Yeah, exactly, Caesar. Again, it's like there's a good stat like that in World War One that I always like bringing up. So obviously in World War One, before helmets came into issue, loads of soldiers died from head wounds from shrapnel and like rocks hitting them in the head from explosions. When Britain, France, and everybody started issuing helmets, the amount of people getting horrible head injuries like concussion and things like that went up. And then people said, look, this is proof helmets don't work, because more and more people are getting head injuries and concussions. Those are the people that otherwise would have died. But, you know, it's one of those things where people don't understand how the statistics work. So, yeah, if the medical care and all that for, you know, treating people with stab wounds gets better, so even if the same amount of people are stabbed, less die, that doesn't mean stabbings are going down. It, like, or murders, yeah, it, like attempted murders might still be the same number. But oh, you got a threatening license fee. Did they say, oi, where's your license? We're coming round. Yeah, it's also like there's an interesting survivor's bias one, or whatever they call it. All right, Peach? With, I think it's B-17s in World War II. Yeah, survivorship bias, where the B-17s that came back, they'd look at the holes in them and then say, oh, we need to up armor these areas because they're full of holes. They're the ones that came back. It means the plane was working. You didn't see the ones where the holes were in the engines and whatever else, because they crashed, you know, or like the cockpit blew up and, you know, the pilot died or whatever. So yeah, you'd get the similar thing, that the B-17s that made it back, the people would look at them and then say, oh, we need to up armor it here and here and here. But yeah, if they came back, the planes were working. Again, you're not seeing the ones with the hits that actually caused the plane to crash, which is what you should be looking at. Yeah, bits of the fuselage, yeah, the cockpit, engines, yeah. But again, there's lots of things like that where people just don't understand how the data works. Secondary school education, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I didn't learn that in school about B-17s getting shot at. It's just one of those interesting survivor bias things that, you know, there are a lot of examples like that where, yeah, statistics can be really misleading because of the way they're reported, or the way, yeah. Again, the thing is with school, as I've said to a lot of people, the classes I did well in were the ones where the teachers were enthusiastic and actually wanted to teach you stuff. The classes I didn't do well in were the ones where the teachers just literally wrote on a whiteboard and told us to read textbooks. Yeah, certain hospitals, yeah, during COVID did the thing where they were just marking every death as a COVID death or whatever, even if it wasn't COVID that got them. Like if they had COVID and they died, they were infected with COVID, they put the cause of death as COVID, even if they came in with something else and just caught COVID while they were there. But yeah, so what was I just going to say about school or whatever else? I can't remember now. But oh, they're going to come on Christmas Day. That's not a very Christian thing to do. I mean, you could be like Jesus kicking the money lenders out the temple, Oliver. That if the BBC license people come on Christmas Day, you could literally whip them out. I don't mean whip them out like getting your cock out. I mean, get your whip or whatever, or your cane, whatever Jesus did to the moneylenders in the temple. Because why the? I've heard that they did that last year, didn't they? They threatened a load of people on Christmas Day, and then were like, "Oh, it was a mistake." Yeah, I bet it was, you cunts. We only, it was only when like people online showed all of their letters where they were threatening the elderly people and whoever else that they were going to come around and kick your door in on Christmas Day. That then when the backlash from that made you look bad, that you said it was an error. Yeah, I bet. So Frozen Undy says, just going back to the police, I think as well the police have real contempt for genuine people reporting an actual crime. With the police, right? I've met some cops that are really fucking good that obviously have wanted to join the police to help people, and then I think they're the sort of people that get disillusioned in the police if they're not helping people. But I think a big problem with the police supposedly is a lot of the very high rank cops now that make a lot of the rules. It's like the College of Policing or whatever it is. And people that go into the police are much more like not real world experienced people that get some uni degree. So they go and do a specific uni course that's related to the police. And then they do all this other training stuff. So they're kind of out of touch with reality, where back in the day, the people that joined the police were probably just local people that wanted to, make a better thing. But again, I have met people that are in the police that are really nice people. I really don't want it to sound like I think everybody in the police is bad. It's just, I think in the UK, the police has kind of been, I wouldn't say corrupted, but, where is very misguided, compromised. Yeah, kind of a bit like that, where you've got political people that have got into it that keep trying to subvert it, and then you've got people that just don't really know any better in it, and then you've got the police having to enforce stuff, because again, the police don't make the rules, they enforce them, where the politicians come up with fucking stupid rules and then the police are forced to enforce it even if they wouldn't agree with them. I could, if NATO breaks apart because Trump does do something stupid over Greenland, I can see there being a European defense, like neutral thing, even if it's not called NATO. But NATO wouldn't exist as it was, no, if Trump fucks it up. But like I said, I could certainly imagine a few of the European countries having a joint defense bloc kind of thing. What's going on in the Balkans at the moment? Or are you saying it's turning into the Balkans as though it was after the death of Tito and it falling apart in the 90s? But yeah, State of Mind podcast, the funny thing is people like that are the ones they don't want in the police because they've got a criminal record or whatever. I don't know about the current state in New York with Atlas Shrugged, but I was kind of thinking the other day when I was doing that Pathways Parody Part 2 that it was a bit Atlas Shrugged, where the competent people go to live off somewhere. Again, anarcho-capitalism sort of stuff, the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged I quite like, but again, I don't think super extreme capitalism works either, because again, you can play BioShock and see what would go wrong with that. The BioShock book is really good, by the way. It's called Rapture, and it's like a prequel to the game. But, if you have a system where the only way of getting ahead is basically super capitalism, you are going to get very angry, resentful people that will then, probably have an uprising. Because again, that's why people like FDR did the New Deal, because basically they knew that the poor people were getting so angry that they had to give them something back, or else you're just going to get a revolution. No, I haven't heard. Again, people keep bringing up the Trump stuff today, but I've not looked at it, so I'm going to have to look at it after this stream. Right, I'm going to go off in a minute because I've been on, an hour and 20 minutes now, roughly. So yeah, don't forget to like the stream before you go off. Again, if you haven't seen it yet today, I did do 2 videos, one on the UN helmets, that quite a lot of people watch for a short. I'm just trying to see where that blue helmet's gone. I thought I had it behind me, but oh yeah, there it is. I did one on, this UN helmet. Just talking about blue helmets, people are like, oh my god, you're the Antichrist, you got a UN helmet. So it doesn't mean I'm a UN peacekeeper, I'm just doing a history thing on the helmets. Target practice helmet. I also did a 3-minute video on another Pathways parody that is all about the failures of Prevent. And everything in that video is totally fucking true. It's literally a video where I've just got the research up from things Prevent have failed that have led to people being killed in terror attacks. And then I've just literally got the AI voice to read them out. So yeah, you know, if you want a bit of red pilling on Prevent. Again, when I've said about the blue helmets, depends on which helmet they are, because there's so many different UN helmets. I've got a Swiss Civil Defence helmet. I did do a video on that, but I don't think it's in this room at the moment. The yellow Swiss Civil Defence one. But yeah, with UN helmets, it's basically whichever helmet they painted blue, put UN on, or put a UN cover over. Because as I said in the video today, it really depends on which helmet's been used, because like a lot of countries just got rid of their surplus by giving it to the UN to turn into peacekeeper helmets. So basically, like this one, this is a Czech Cold War commie steel pot that's just been painted blue with UN on it, because you know, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic or whatever, Czechia just got rid of all their old stock, I guess, by donating them to the UN. All right, I'm very interested in that, Kevin. Yeah, because like I said, you don't really see the SGEs over here. So when people keep saying, can I get one and review it? Not really, because you don't see them here. So I'd have to pay a shitload of tax and import money to review it. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll be off. I need to get some dinner because I've not had any dinner yet and I'm quite hungry, and all that sort of stuff. So I will see everybody later. Have a good evening. Oh, what? Slamming a drone into the reactor building? For fuck's sake. Oh, nuclear terrorism. Doesn't it make us big and strong? Right, yeah. Anyway, see you all. Have a good evening. And thanks for watching, everybody. And I will hopefully be on for a stream and everything tomorrow. So yeah, have a good evening and all.